Cormoran and Robin are back in the 7th installment of the Strike and Ellacott saga after the shortest wait of the series so far. This story picks up 8 months after the Ink Black Heart, which ended with the shocking revelation that Strike was in love with Ellacott. Shocking to him apparently, but not to anyone else within the story or out. Seriously my guy, you're a detective and you didn't realise that being borderline obsessed with the woman's hair, cheered merely by hearing her voice even in the darkest of moods, and think about her constantly, meant that you had caught the feels.
Sure, Jan.
And during the 8-month time skip, I am absolutely delighted to announce that Robin, the Nisha Ellacott, has been getting her vitamin D and has entered into a relationship with Copper, Ryan Murphy.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
In the book, Robin and her new man go on a date at the Duke of York's Theatre, where Tom Burke starred in Rosmersholm in 2019. Not really relevant to this recap at all, I just wanted to flex that I met my special interest man there. There's a line about her newfound sex life that made my salty little soul very happy. Gah, get wrecked, Matthew. Elsa and Nick have had baby Benji, and we open on Strike and Robin becoming his godparents. The opening chapters of this book have everything. Strike holding a baby, descriptions of how hard he has worked on his personal health, the first hints that Ryan is all wrong for Robin, Strike being the most envious man on earth, and the line which will be carved upon my tombstone. Love had arrived in a form he didn't recognise. One of Ilsa's annoyingly and interestingly named workmates has invited herself to the party, and during it, Robin's boyfriend, Ryan Murphy, is checking out Little Miss Posh name for her tiny house's boobs, which gets him a red flag from me. He's hinting loudly in front of Robin's friends that they should have kids without having discussed the possibility with her privately first, which is also a red flag. In fact, let's start a counter for those. And as we comment about them plotting, reminding her of Matt the Twat, Robin, girl, run. Speaking of fake name and her equally fake tatas, I am not so delighted to announce that Cormoran Blue Strike is back on his bullshit. For fuck's sake, Strike, get your shit together, please. It's getting really hard to defend you here, my dude. I know he's only doing this because he is devastated about Robin seeing Ryan, but my guy needs to get some better coping mechanisms. I know people will hate Strike's decision to take his arse and bang the crazy lady with a silly name up against the wall, but he is a free, red-blooded and single being the most important word here, consenting adult. He can do whatever he wants. I just wish he had better taste in one night, or should I say, 2 night stands, and maybe learn some better ways to deal with emotional pain. Oh, but he judged Murphy for looking at her chest and then he shagged her, the hypocrite! As well, he should have judged the man who is not single, not being the important distinction here, and not free to check her out. So the red flag tally remains the same. Wardle later tells Strike a story of something horrible Ryan did while he was drunk, and he's getting half a red flag for that. Why only half? Well, because that was when he was an alcoholic and he is now sober, so he's getting the benefit of the doubt on that one. Later we find out that Miss Small Residence is pregnant, which is going to make several people on the internet really annoying until the next book is out. But I personally hope that Semi-Detached and her baby she got out of the bin are very happy together. The agency continues to thrive. They've hired a mute man for some reason, who acts a bit like this.
Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious.
And Pat begins acting a bit weird too. Our dynamic duo are about to embark on an investigation into a church that sounds an awful lot like a cult. Sounds fun, right? Nothing too deep there, surely. The obvious thing needed for this case is for someone to go undercover within the church, and Robin expects pushback from Strike on this as he has always been overly protective when it comes to her, but in a show of what might be personal development in that department, Strike agrees that she is the best detective for the job. Of course, that is when he thinks that the job will only involve a few weeks at the church's farm. Before the trauma begins, we get a lovely insight into Strike's newfound relationship with his half-sister Prudence. She helps Robin prepare and sends her away with homework books on cults. They argue a bit later in the story, but I want to see them hanging out and being besties further down the line, please. Strike can't understand why anyone would join a cult, and yet was in the army. During the visit to Prue's house, Strike picks up a magnifying glass and literally looks for clues. If we don't get that bit, and Robin's, Sherlock Holmes I presume, quip, in the TV adaptation, I will personally start a riot. We also get Strike and Lucy talking in this book, like actually having a real conversation, but more on that later. Just before Robin goes undercover, we see Ryan start to show the first overt signs of jealousy. And he's going to miss you, is that what you're saying? I heard this part in my head in Matthew's voice. There's a team meeting where everyone is working together to get Robin as ready as she can be for her undercover mission. The team is really meshing and it's beautiful to see. Side note, during this meeting Barclay is drinking out of a Celtic mug. I just want to point point out that it's Celtic, the Glasgow-based football club, not Celtic, because nobody told poor Robert Glenister that before his audiobook recording. Robin, as expected, smashes her mission to be recruited into the cult under the pseudonym Rowena Ravenclaw. I won't check the book to make sure that's the correct name because I feel in my heart that it absolutely is. Robin and Murphy had their first real fight about Strike just before she leaves. And as much as I dislike him, he's right. No red flag here because he is only sensing Robin and Strike's actual feelings for each other. Boy run? Robin enters the church/cult and what follows is 4 harrowing months of her being starved, overworked, underslept, physically assaulted, tortured, drowned, and I think technically dies for a moment. But she's never brainwashed because my girl is built different. She resists all attempts to make her a true believer. Whilst Robin is in deep cover, Corwin has to contend with Charlotte being back and faking cancer, so oof. His Uncle Ted's health deteriorating, his constant battle between wanting to eat chips and wanting to live past 50, and his profound sadness of living without Robin there with him. A large part of his book is his Strike pining for Robin and realising that he doesn't actually want to be on his own, which I obviously loved. Charlotte calls the office to make her final threats, and then does what the YouTube gods prefer I call unaliving. This abrupt end to her story threw me. I thought for sure she was going to go out in a blaze of glory and cause a huge fuss, but after ruminating on it for a while, I realised that sadly this is exactly what happens in real life. People suffer, and then one day, they suddenly aren't here anymore. While Strike is on the outside dealing with his spicy memories, Robin is at the farm making all new ones for herself. She's around 100 miles away from London talking to an imaginary Strike just to stay sane. I'm so like Robin because I too imagine Corwin and Strike at all times. Holiday Granger and Tom Burke are going to be amazing filming the TV shows for this book and I really hope imaginary Strike is kept in. During her 4-month stay at the worst spa resort in England, Robin helps birth a breech baby, saves a young girl who has given herself an at-home abortion, plants the seeds in Will's head that make him leave the church, which was the original mission, and gathers enough evidence to start a process of taking down an evil sex cult that sells babies. Just a casual spring summer for one half of London's best detective duo. Her strength is unbelievable, and when she finally hits a point where she can take no more, she does an amazing dive out the bathroom window. She makes a run for it, sensing that Strike is there to get her because she presumably has actually gone pure spirit. That should be all the trauma over now, right? Right?
What do you mean? What do you mean?
The immediate aftermath of Robin leaving was my favourite part of the book. The desperate hugging in the car, Strike kissing Robin's hair, and the fact that Robert gave us the "there was only one bed" trope. Robin's parents pitch up as soon as she's home, and her mum manages to simultaneously treat Robin like a child and hint that she wants her to have children. Which is it, Linda? Your actual problem child is about to have a baby with a woman he has only known for 5.5 minutes, so maybe focus your energy on worrying about Martin and leave Robin to run her very successful business and live her best life. With Robin home mostly intact, the team starts working to dismantle the church by disproving the drowned prophet myth at the heart of the cult. This was a tactic to sway believers away from the church, but digging into this mystery leads them to solving 2 murders. Because they're so good at this detective shit, they solve crimes when that isn't actually their goal at all. After everything she has been through, Robin has nightmares, is haunted by giant posters and billboards of Jonathan Wace all over London, and is being investigated for assaulting a child. So naturally, this is the exact moment Ryan decides to declare his love. That's the exact correct time for that, isn't it, Ryan? For fuck's sake. There's a whole mess with Strike inadvertently harasses a client of Cruz who has been posting artworks online depicting the murder of a church member, but the conflict leads to a wonderful scene where Robin not only owns her trauma and changes Prue's mind about letting them talk to the client, also demonstrates to Strike's half-sister that she is a complete and utter badass. Murphy gets a hold of the police interview tapes of Robin's accuser, which is important for the storyline, but that also makes him a bad policeman. I'm no expert, but showing an accused person the witness interview has to be against regulations, if not out-and-out laws, right? He's getting a red flag for that. Ryan's flat having no decorative items gets him another red flag. But Strike is getting one too, because man's attic is bare. And Robin, she doesn't try and change Ryan's flat or gift him some decoration or anything, so she's getting a green flag. Phyllis of Philodendron was the only plant to actually survive Ryan's plant sitting. My script says, insert something here about how that represents Strike and Robin's love for each other persevering or something. Anyways, Robin, just been through 4 months of absolute hell that hasn't actually ended yet because of this police investigation, Ellacott wants to vent a little while watching these police interviews, which is understandable. Understandable unless you're Ryan, the smug prick Murphy. Apparently, because he keeps shushing her, not only does he try and quiet her down, he talks over her. Let her speak, Cactus Boy. The Strike and Ellacott Detective Agency finally got CCTV after, let me check my notes here, a gazillion and free reasons to get some extra security have occurred in the last few years, and they catch a gunman trying to access the office. People they've interviewed about the church start either attempting to off themselves, or in the case of Sherry Gittins, who had 2 young daughters, actually manages the task. Dismantling the church is beginning to look like an insurmountable task. They have hired gunmen who instill the level of fear in people where they would rather die than face them, and nobody is talking. Then, out of what seems like nowhere, Will Ensor turns up at the office. The seeds of rebellion Robin planted in his mind were not for naught. Will has grabbed his daughter and fled, which is obviously a huge puzzle piece of taking down the church. But most importantly, this thread of the story shines a light on the wonderfulness that is Pat.
I'm a bitch, I'm a boss, I'm a bitch and a boss, I'm a shine like glass, I'm a bitch, I'm a
Pat immediately goes into full-on mum mode and then just clothes, pizza, improvises toys for Ching out of post-it notes, and then casually adopts them both and takes them home with zero hesitation. In this book, Pat dealt with being blackmailed by Little John, had to reveal to Strike that she lied about her age and is actually 67. We find out she's a great grandma, has never told her family where she works because she signed an NDA, and most importantly, she knew a lesbian once. A true ally queen. And Will? He took Robin's spy rock at the farm, worked out who she was by looking at the impressions left in her notebook, found his way to an internet connection to do a mini background check on her and Strike, and then navigated his way to the office for help. If the Strike and Ellacott agency still needs another detective once Will's deprogramming therapy is complete, then they should sign him up. Re-energised by the appearance of Will, Robin decides that she needs to have it out with Prudence. That not only does the agency need to talk to her client about her time in the cult, but that the client herself would also benefit from being a part of taking it all down. She swaps a shift to make time to go duke it out with his sister, and Strike goes on this whole thought spiral where he imagines Robin and Ryan must be buying a house together. Sir, please calm down. Robin accuses Prue of wanting her client to testify subconsciously, and Prue accuses Robin of trying to look good for Strike, and Robin reads her to filth by pointing out that she only said she had a client from the farm for the same reason, then gets real and tells her the story of poor Jacob, the little boy who died at the farm. She lays out how taking the stand against her attacker helped her, and could help Flora, her client, and a witness to a drowning at Chapman Farm, heal from everything that had happened to her. Robin later describes her dinner with Prudence as a hard pitch for Flora to go to the police. I'd hate to see her version of a soft bitch. Strike decides to go to the show the church has been advertising on billboards all over London, the ones that have haunted Robin, so that he can look Jonathan Wace in the eye and let him know that if anything happens to the people involved in the case, that he'll burn his church to the fucking ground. When asked about himself by a church member at the show, he responds with, "I'm a private detective. I've been hired to look into the church, particularly in regards to sexual abuse and suspicious deaths," and is invited backstage. I'll try this next time I'm at a concert to see if I get to meet the band. When the book essentially described Wace as a hot guy in his 60s, my brain searched his database and came back with Paul McGann, and that's who I pictured all the way through the story. During Strike's confrontation with Wace, he implies one of the church elders is a man in the incriminating Polaroid photos Robin found at the farm, accuses the church of having he and Robin followed, of murdering Kevin, and suggests that Deo never drowned. With hindsight, this is absolutely hilarious because only that last one was true. Papa J left that meeting thinking he had nothing to fear from the Strike and Ellacott agency because Strike must be an absolute nutter. During this meeting, Mazu is FaceTiming on a laptop because her creepy ass is not invited to be on stage, I guess. While Strike is enjoying the bullshit show, Robin is in the office and thinks she sees the armed gunman outside watching the office again. So, does she A. call her police officer boyfriend, or B. take a nap? After her unintentional sleepover in the office, Robin showers in Strike's flat and she's trying not to think about Strike naked. If she works out how to do that, she needs to let me know. Murphy asks her why she didn't call them when the office was being watched, and Robin is all,
"I don't think about you at all."
Murphy accuses her of sleeping at Strike's and lying to him, but then Robin does lie to him about Bijou right after, and she doesn't tell him that they share a bed in Norfolk. I've got to be fair, so she's getting a red flag for that too. The gang all gets together for a funky good time, and by the gang I mean Robin, Prudence, and 2 very traumatised former cult members. One of who has had years of therapy and still isn't okay at all, and the other fresh off of the drowned prophet boat and still convinced that she can see him. Will is, as expected, paranoid during the meeting, thinking that this has all been one big test by the church, and Robin handles it with so much logic that she may as well have thrown out a live long and prosper. The witness, Flora, still has hallucinations and went through a stillbirth while at the farm. She has suffered unimaginable horrors, but finds strength in the fact that the church is finally being investigated. She reveals the divine secrets to Robin, to prove to Will that the drowned prophet cannot and will not appear to strike her down for revealing these higher level truths. These are the dragon medal, that there are dead bodies in the field, the loving cure, the corrective rape of gay women and the mentally ill, the living sacrifice, the selling of the babies born within the cult. These are the crimes the church/cult has committed. These are how Robin and Strike will burn it all to the fucking ground. Strike and Robin leave the meeting hopeful that they've finally convinced Will that the church is full of shit, and are then followed by a car and shot at. So, safe from imaginary drowned ghost girls, but not bullets, saws Will. After they deal with the police statements and get Will home safe, they get a metric ton of McDonald's food and head back to the office to hash it all out. Robin notices the inconsistency in the people following them. Some are highly efficient and some who stick out like a sore thumb, and they put it together that the church are not the ones stalking them. It has to be related to the Polaroids. During this, Robin is shivering and Strike gives her his jacket. I am weak for him doing old school gentlemanly shit. They realise that Dayu going out of the window of the kid's dorm is the last time she's actually seen, and may not have actually gone to the beach and drowned. I know the books have to keep it vague and they're working it out stage so they can have their Poirot moment at the end. I always find these last chapters before the reveal so frustrating, because we're getting all the bits but not the full reveal. Maybe I just read too fast. There's just so much going on in this case, my poor wee brain can't take it. Our detective duo gather all their police contacts at the pub, except Anstis, because fuck him I guess. Wardle, Laybourne, Equenzi and Murphy meet along with Will and Flora to lay out all the evidence and get an official investigation going into the church. Will reveals why Emily Pirbright won't eat the carrots at the farm, because her brother's dead body is buried in the vegetable patch. The police swoop in on the cult and Strike and Robin sit on his bed watching the arrests on the news. Robin remains the only woman he's invited in his flat, by the way. Just a thing I like to point out. And finally, after what feels like 3 million pages, we get to the whodunit part of the book. Strike corners Abigail while Robin goes to confront Becca at the Rupert Court Church. Alone. Robin, girl, heading into that church alone makes it really hard to defend you against the Robin is reckless truthers. During their chat, Abigail wants to leave, but Strike hits her with the Columbo style, just a few more things. Robin finds Mazu at the church, and she has a rifle. Robin, why are you all alone right now? Where is your backup? They fight as Midge and then Becca arrive. For a hot minute, I thought Robin might actually shoot someone, and to be honest, she deserves a bit of shooting people after everything she's been through. As a treat.
I have done nothing wrong, ever, in my life.
I know this. And I love you.
Abigail denies everything Strike puts to her, and in doing so gets the word speculation wrong. Until that point, I thought the no education bit was just that, a bit. A front to seem harmless and fly under the radar, is too stupid to have been a mastermind, but she really seems to be a bit uneducated. Strike and the team have enough to prove that Abigail and her little gang at the farm killed Dayu, and then had the pigs eat the evidence, and that she killed Kevin in his flat for knowing too much. And DCI Cactus takes her off to jail. Strike and Robin visit the Ensors home with Pat and her husband. They watch Will and Lynn's child, who has been renamed Sally after Will's mother, playing with her cousins happily. It's a lovely scene after all this horrible trauma. We get to see what it's all been for, saving these children, and I include Lynn in that, from their horrible lives on the farm. They discuss all the bodies found in the field on Chapman Farm, that the police have arrested most of the main players, and other witnesses have come forward due to press coverage. Strike and Lucy are looking for elderly care homes for Ted after his dementia diagnosis and a stroke. They have a lovely conversation where Lucy comes to terms with the fact that her brother's never getting married, just as Strike has decided that he is all in with Robin. Strike meets Charlotte's sister. She burnt the note, but Strike already knew what it would have said. The note had several pages. Only a single line was written for her children. Strike is reminded of this Cullis quote, "Happiness is a choice that requires effort at times." During her meeting, and starts thinking about how he should take that advice. And then we get the chapter of the book. Of the series so far, Robin is about to embark on a weekend away with Ryan for some reason, but is in the office discussing her latest case first. Strike is in a suit for this conversation, which I think is important for reasons. Robin finally gets to hear direct from the horse's mouth that Strike is no longer in love with Charlotte, and hasn't been for some time, after 6 years of her longing to know how he really felt about his ex. During their talk, Strike wrestles with thoughts about how sexy Robin is, how his feelings for her had grown deeper and more complex against his will, worries about trashing the business he worked so hard for, and the most important friendship of his life. Thinking that Robin may be destined for another engagement ring, decides he has to say something because there came a time when a man needed to take charge of his own fate. It's brave, it's bold, and And he totally fucks it up. He admits he should have walked away from Charlotte all the way back when he met her, and Robin admits she wanted to leave Matt within an hour of the wedding. Strike remembers the hug they shared at her wedding, and he thinks there was no turning back. He's in far too deep. He then drops the 8 words which will launch a million fanfics. She knew I was in love with you. Cormoran, my dude, that is not how to clearly tell someone that you are actively in love with them. We especially do not slip this back into a conversation about your dead ex. Ryan arrives to take Robin on her trip, and girl is dazed and confused heading out that door. Then Strike and Pat have the second best exchange in the book as she says, they make a good couple. And his response is, we'll see.
She knows, and I know she knows.
My predictions for this book from my last video were more Leda clues, which we didn't get a lot of, but Lucy's revelations about her childhood trauma did shed some more light on what a shitty parent Leda was, sadly. Robin getting that D. I was correct here, but that's a very obvious guess. Strike low-key therapy. It turns out that his newfound relationship with Prudence was indeed good for him. Strike and Robin kiss. Listen, I've been predicting this since before book 2 came out, and will continue till... Actually, you know what? I'm planting my flag on this hill. They will kiss on purpose in book 8. Robin's dad, he was fine this book. I still think he's on borrowed time. I was absolutely gutted that Strike was the one with parent level problems. I love Ted, and seeing him struggle was difficult. I think it's going to pay off in the form of him letting something slip about Leda that he had previously kept from his nephew/adopted son. Rokeby meeting. Prudence gave us some more insight, and I'm not sure if it'll be next book or the one after, but I cannot shake the feeling that Rokeby is just going to pitch up at the office uninvited. Mostly non-London based, yeah, but again, that was really obvious. For my last video, I also made this graphic as a joke, but I'm starting to think I'm right. I went pure spirit before I even knew what that was. I read these books, no thoughts, head empty. So when I do make connections, it is either mad obvious or some kind of miracle. But I knew the minute Abigail tried to bet Strike after her interview that she must have killed someone. I assume Kevin Purbright. Didn't clock that she killed Dayu too. I'm gonna go ahead and give myself one shiny solve point anyway, which gives me exactly 2 over 7 books. Despite having an empty brain going at this book, I'm a huge Strike and Ellacott Files podcast fan, and their discussions about how big clues are always hidden in scenes with characters we don't like, who are annoying, stuck in my head. So I realised the things said by that really annoying witness couple who brought her friends to the interview, who does that by the way, were important, and that Cherie was lying about something on the beach that day. More clues were hidden amongst sexist bullshit when Abigail's ex, Barry Saxon, goes to visit Strike to chat shit about her. It's a clever writing technique that I'll be looking out for in the future books, and still probably won't guess who done it ever again. Earlier I said that by junction being pregnant was going to lead to annoying speculation, and now I'm going to be a huge hypocrite and say that the bit where Robin got condoms put me on edge. Why even mention that? Why put that in my head, Robert? It was probably mentioned to stop speculation, but my paranoid ass doesn't trust a method of birth control that can be interfered with at all. After Madeline, I was sure that Strike was done with his flings, but no.
Hey, fancy another one?
Also calling this bullshit a displacement fuck is the best phrase I have ever heard. 10 out of 10 will be working that into my vocab. I'm confident that this is Strike's last backslide on his road to having fully formed adult level emotional maturity, and he really went on a beautiful journey during this book. I was prepared for the horrible parts of the story to start once Robin entered the cult, so I was sideswiped by Strike's visit to his sisters and Lucy's revelation about the abuse she faced as a child. She confided in him, and after all these years, Strike finally realises that her urge to be painfully normal is just as much a trauma response to her childhood as his running away from commitment is. And Lucy being shocked that Strike isn't in therapy was a major laugh in a really horrible moment of the book. I also had to laugh at Strike's realisation that Lucy is a real human person with thoughts and feelings. Man has a serious case of main character syndrome. Can he learn from how amazingly an actual real conversation with Lucy turned out and apply this method to his other relationships? We can but hope. After his talk with Lucy, he thinks about his mother and says to himself and her, "If you hadn't been what you were, maybe I wouldn't be what I am." Look at him making progress. Late to the table, but he's getting there. He also has 2 very important conversations with Charlotte. One where she calls to warn him about the press, where he acknowledges that they were never friends and that was a problem. Won't be a problem with your next serious relationship post-strike. Don't worry, because Robin is your bestie. Second conversation with Charlotte isn't technically with her at all. Cormoran does get out a lot of his feelings and does a lot of deciding what he wants in life as he's saying goodbye to her in the church in chapter 64. He'll never put up with treatment like she dealt out again. She's not a saint any more than I am. She's a good person. I want a good person for a change. He also makes the connection between his mother and why he pursued Charlotte in the first place. The teenager who left Leda and her dangerous naivety only to fall for Charlotte and her equally dangerous sophistication. When Ryan is taking Robin to the theatre, Strike thinks that's a lot of effort 8 months into her relationship, then starts googling nice places to have lunch while he and Robin are out. He might not realise it at this point in the tale, but he is starting to make an effort, finally.
You know what that is? It's growth.
I'm going to begin this section by saying something negative about Robin Ellacott. Yeah, I know, I was shocked too. But this usually perfect pure cinnamon roll of a human has clearly spent far too much time with Cormoran Strike, but she is conducting her dated life exactly the way that he does. Knowing full well she was in love with Cormoran, she has entered into a relationship with another man. Yes, she needed this. Her only ever romantic relationship was with Matt the Twat, and I was one of the people cheering her on to get back out there. Having a few hookups or brief flings would have been fine. The book opens 8 months into Robin and Ryan dating. That's a decent amount of time to let a situationship go on for, and I kinda feel bad for Ryan. They really should have had the dreaded "where's this going" talk by now, but clearly they have not. Robin goes into this relationship knowing full well she is using him to distract from her feelings for Strike and ticking a box, as it were, after her divorce. Which is the exact same behaviour Strike gets called all the names under the sun for. However, I think it's actually worse, because Strike is at least always upfront about not wanting anything serious. He's never invited a woman into his home, and never stays over at theirs 2 nights in a row. Side note, how on earth did Lorelei date this man for a year without ever seeing the inside of his flat? Like, she didn't see any red flags there, no? Robin does not seem to have told Ryan that there is zero chance of her ever settling down to become the mother of his children. I don't blame her at all for the automatic "I love you too," given she had just gotten out of a literal cult and he should not have put her in that situation at all. But she really should have ended things before she even set foot on that farm. Having said all that, I am still the #1 Robin v. Ellacott fangirl. On her journey in the running grave, Robin navigates the risks and exhaustion that push in on her every waking moment in the cult with astonishing bravery and intelligence. She knows exactly when to push Will hard with the news about his mother's death, and when to push softly as she subtly reminds him that his little girl will also one day become subject to the spirit bonding rules. Despite lack of proper food and adequate sleep, Robin's ability to read people remains, and she knows to stroke the ego of Jean, the waste sibling with the eye tick, to get him to talk. Amongst her repeatedly selflessly putting herself on the line to save Will and the children in the cult, she also helps birth a child and saves a teenage girl from a homemade abortion too. Give Robin an all-expenses paid holiday somewhere nice immediately. I messed up badly before this book came out and looked at the spoilers posted on Reddit, so a lot of the emotional beats of the book just didn't land for me. This was entirely my own fault. Knowing Robin escaped from a farm physically unharmed took the tension out of these chapters for me. Something I wasn't spoiled for was Robin's conversation with the doctor, where she thinks about how she had contracted a sexually transmitted infection after her attack, and it absolutely floored me. The revelation hit me like a punch to the solar plexus, and reminded me that Robin Ellacott is the bravest character I have ever loved. Aside from the titular Strike and Ellacott, we caught up with our other regular faves, Nick and Elsa, who finally became the parents who were always destined to be with baby Benjamin. The christening was a great opener for the novel, allowing us insight into Cormoran and Robin's best friends' lives, but also gave us a wholesome tradition based in religion before subjecting us to the horrible kind later in the story. Speaking of favourite characters, I am ready to throw hands over the Uncle Ted developments here. He just lost the love of his life, Robert. Why couldn't you just let him be? Could have joined a wee social club, got a new hobby. But no, soul-crushing storyline it is. I've already prattled on about how much I love Pat in this book, but the whole agency working together before Robin went undercover was amazing. The rock map, Barclay clearing branches in the blind spot, teamwork makes the dream work. Speaking of my favourite characters, the one I love to hate made her exit in this edition. Before she did, she made me briefly really like her. For all her threats and scheming, when it really came to it and Strike's reputation was on the line, she told the press that he would never sleep with a client, defended him, and said he was nothing like his father. There was a tiny shred of humanity in there somewhere. And then we have the Shanker storyline. We're finally going to get a glimpse into his life with the 2 little girls he helped Robin save from a monster. Oh, wait. No, we're not. We're getting a brief mention, then he's gone. Okay, cool. This is a book in a series that truly chucks a will they won't they nonsense out the window, and out has the two main characters face the fact that they are in love with each other. Seriously, if you're still in the no romance camp about these two, please seek help and or media literacy classes immediately, because
This is a love story.
this book was really dark, but we still got some lovely moments like Strike telling his new sister all about Robin. Prudence even calls her the most important person in Corm's life. Cormoran does nothing but pine for Robin like a lovesick puppy while she's gone at the farm. Meanwhile, she's in a cult talking to her imaginary version of him in her head and totally forgetting that she currently has a boyfriend. Strike and Robin writing letters to each other is everything I ever wanted, but this was not the way I wanted it to happen. Also, that rock needed more chocolate in it. Strike's driving past Chapman Farm on his way somewhere else just to feel close to her. He's kicking himself for not saying something to her before now, like when we were at that hotel in Whitstable. Then he dreams about her. We're in the Land Rover exchanging anecdotes about drowning before Robin nearly drowns. Has he gone pure spirit? Robin is trying hard not to be in love with Cormoran.
Bitch, me too.
Good luck, girl. Meanwhile, he is trying his hardest to be the man he thinks she deserves. I say thinks because she already loved him at his lowest points. In the ink black heart, Strike's health hits rock bottom. He's chain smoking, he weighs more than he ever has. Parts of his body are literally twitching from it all, and he is just not looking after himself. Robin still loved that version of him because she is a wonderful person, but personally I think she deserves a fitter version of Strike who A, won't die of a heart attack 5 minutes after we get together, and B, has more stamina. Robin just knows Strike is there to get her. She feels it in her bones. They're clinging to each other in the car when she's out, and he's just kissing her hair. Then they have to sleep together because there was only one bed. They held hands in that bed.
And you just push through.
The shippy stuff we got in this book nearly killed me. I may not survive them actually getting together. And about that chapter, Cormoran, honey, baby boy, no. Don't chuck the L word in amongst a conversation about your recently deceased ex. We also do not put the word was in the middle of that sentence. She knew I was in love with you? Past tense? The mental gymnastics Robin will be doing about those 8 words could earn more medals than Simone Biles. She immediately starts waiting for him to clarify that Charlotte was wrong, and I've no doubt that these thoughts are going to spiral while she's away on her weekend trip with her temporary solution man. If she makes it that far. I've been heavily on my AO3 bullshit, reading every post the running graphic I can get my grubby little hands on, and I love the ones where she dumps Ryan on the spot and heads back to find Strike.
Kiss each other in the mouth.
I doubt she's going to do that though, because this author loves to make us suffer. There was one fanfic, and somebody please tell me who wrote it so I can credit them, where Robin and Ryan go away and she doesn't dump him because his sister died. I groaned out loud in my bedroom raging because that's exactly the horrible sort of thing that is going to happen. It's going to be seaborne bacteria all over again. Something will prevent them from getting together until the very end of the book, and I will sue for pain and suffering. I'm gonna make a bold claim for book 8 here. Move over, Ilsa, because I think we have a new captain of this ship. The final exchange between Pat and Strike, where he says, "We'll see." Pat gives him a penetrating look. He's just gathered up all his big detective energy to tell Robin he loves her, and moments later he's dropping hints to Pat too. She knows, and despite her entirely fair opinion of Strike as a grumpy bugger, once she has time to ruminate on it, she's gonna realise, like everyone else in their lives has, that they are in fact perfect for each other. My girl Pat is gonna be on the phone booking these 2 hotel stays with only one bed. I'll put money on it now. And even if I'm wrong here, Pat knowing that Strike seemingly on a mission to take his happiness into his own hands has left us with loads to speculate about for book 8, and it will be a fun ride. Strap in, kids, because I am about to say some negative things about a Strike and Ellacott book. The Patterson Little John trying to fuck up the agency with snakes and interrupting surveillance was fun, didn't need as much page coverage as it got. I get that these stories need more going on than just the main crime and the main relationship progress. I know that every bit of world building is important, and I'll miss such a detailed story when these books are over, but these tomes are so large now that I could do with a little less of the side quests personally. I couldn't have given less of a fuck about the Frank brothers stalking an actress either. One or the other side story would have been fine, but both being included in such detail when Shanker's stepdaughter's cancer was given next to nothing? It felt like those threads were taking up a lot of real estate. Like, seriously, we've been invested in Elisa and her daughter since book 3 and they deserve more space within this story. At the time the agency sends a random actress they've known for 2 minutes undercover, they think that this cult is capable of sending men with guns after people. They think that someone from a church phoned Jordan Rooney and Sherry Gittins and with just those phone calls made them attempt to off themselves. They think this cult has that level of terrifying power. With hindsight, we know that was all Abigail, but at that point in time, the characters do not, and they say, "Oh yeah, for sure, we should send this untrained person undercover into a hugely dangerous place." And they can trust her because she's having an inappropriate relationship with one of her contractors. Strike tells Midge not to follow the van because you've got a civilian with you. Yes, civilian you sent on an undercover mission, Cormoran. While we're at it, you cannot fuck with clients, Midge. There was a whole plot point in this book where Strike's integrity is being called into question by the press falsely claiming that he'd slept with clients. It is treated like a huge red line issue, and then Midge just casually starts dating a client. The conflict of interest, the power dynamics, both Tasha having been Midge's paying client and of Midge being her protector and hero, saving her from being kidnapped, this shit is a mess. Hate it, I hate it, I hate it.
I was rooting for you! We were all rooting for you! How dare you!
As I mentioned earlier, I messed up and spoiled myself for every important plot point in this book, and all the tension, shock and excitement was removed from the story for me. As a result, this was my least favourite of the Strike books. That is entirely on me, but it also means I can't really review the book fairly. I totally nuked the vibes, and sadly, I'll probably learn nothing from this. Having said that, Strike and Robin's personal arcs were perfect, and we got the most relationship stuff of any of the books so far, so it would have probably ranked as my top book if not for my own stupidity. Anyways, The Running Grave gets a 10 out of 10 for the pat parts of the book alone. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'll be back with more insane fan ramblings when we have a release date for The Hallmark Man. Love you, bye!